Hello, YouTube friends, family, and Buffs fanatics. Welcome to the first episode of the Buffs Forecast, a video podcast where we will dive deep into the Buffs' upcoming matchups. I'm your host, Love and Liberty, and today we're breaking down a game that could shake up the entire Big 12 Conference. The Colorado Buffaloes versus the Cincinnati Bearcats. Both teams are sitting right outside the top 25 rankings, both at 5-2 overall and 3-1 in Big 12 conference play. But after Saturday night, only one will emerge as a true potential contender for the Big 12 championship. So settle in, relax, and listen up, because we're about to journey together through the stats, stories, and strategies that will set the stage for this epic Big 12 showdown. Okay, picture this. It's 8:15 p.m. kickoff at Folsom Field in Boulder, Saturday night. The stadium is a sea of black and gold, with 50,000 fans breathing in the crisp 58-degree mountain air. The clear moonlight casts a silver glow over the Rocky Mountain Flatirons right behind the stadium, and the atmosphere here in Boulder is electric. You can almost hear the heartbeat of the crowd sinking with the CU drumline as the Buffaloes charge onto the field, led by Coach Prime. On the west side of the stadium, the Bearcats arrive with their customary East Coast fierceness and intensity that Cincinnati is known for. They've been clawing their way through this season, and they're ready to make a statement against Coach Prime and the Buffs on national television, on ESPN. This isn't just a game, it's a pivotal chapter in both teams' quests for 2024 college football glory. So let's rewind the tape and relive some of 2024 season's most pivotal moments so far. For the Buffs, against Colorado State. They marched into enemy territory in Fort Collins after losing in Nebraska and dominated the Rams, winning by 19 points. CSU isn't a pushover. They're 4-3 overall, 2-0 in the Mountain West. Last year's CU team tended to snowball disappointing losses like the Nebraska game was. So it was a major step in mental toughness to dominate that game CSU had made their Super Bowl. The Baylor thriller, in a primetime late-night game that had as many twists as a roller coaster, the Buffs pulled off an overtime victory after a last-second regulation 43-yard dot, not a Hail Mary in my opinion, for a touchdown that will be remembered for as long as people watch college football highlights. And the UCF upset. As 15-point underdogs, they didn't just win. CU annihilated UCF 48-21 in Orlando in front of more recruits than UCF had ever had at a game. This game showed a lot of what CU's true potential is. It showed that when they lock in, they could compete with any team in college football. Not because they beat a middle ground team like UCF, but it was the way that they dominated them on the road. The Arizona annihilation. They silenced the haters again. Just kidding. We all know the haters will never be silent. But CU with a dominating 34-7 win on the road at Arizona's homecoming, again after an emotionally wrenching loss to KSU, some injuries, and playing on the road. CSU showcases their ceiling, or a glimpse of it, because they still didn't play close to their best football. People who haven't been watching the well-off videos for the last 2 years or longer, they won't understand. But for those of you who have, we see this team at their best can play with any elite team in the country. Their vulnerability is their relative newness playing together as a unit and the temptation for all elite athletes to buy into their own hype a little too much or to look past a hungry underdog opponent. But when this team is healthy, focused, and locked in, I would bet on them to beat anyone. The played-out meme that Colorado is a two-player team is absurd to anybody who really knows this team. They're so deep with talent, it's amazing, considering it's only Coach Prime's halfway through his second season. Again, new players will be challenged by veteran squads, mental focus, and fighting off the wrong kind of ego. the kind of ego that makes you practice or play beneath your potential. But when CU is locked in, I'm betting on the Buffs against anybody. Okay, let's get into the Cincinnati Bearcats 2024 football team. Cincinnati's season has been a little bit of a mixed bag. Close losses by 1 point to 19th ranked and undefeated Pitt, and they lost by 3 to Texas Tech. So they've got fight, but they lack a signature win that defines a season. They've been searching for their breakthrough moment for 2024, and Saturday night is also going to be their biggest game and opportunity of the season. Okay, let's dive deep into the numbers, the raw data that tells a different story beyond the highlights. Points per game. Colorado is averaging 31 points per game. Cincinnati, right behind them at 30 points per game. So the points per game are neck and neck. Let's go ahead and peel back another layer. Total offense. Colorado racking up 399 yards per game. Cincinnati is outpacing them with 451 yards a game, a 52-yard Cincinnati advantage, but arguably against lower, significantly lower, in my opinion, average quality opponents. I don't think Cincy has faced anything comparable to CU, but we're going to find out Saturday night. And here's another area where it gets interesting, the passing attack. Colorado, true aerial supremacy with 324 passing yards per game, thanks to Shedeur Sanders, our phenomenal receiving core, and a rapidly improving O-line. Cincinnati, a respectable passing team, but lesser at 279 yards behind Brendan Sorsby, a 45-yard per game CU advantage. Again, in my opinion, being that CU has done theirs against much higher quality opponents than Cincinnati. All right, the rushing game. Colorado, as we all know, struggling with just 74.5 yards on the ground average, but Augustive has shown potential to be a real high average workhorse when the coaches commit to feeding him the rock. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry so far this season. So he started as the third or fourth string running back. So let's see what Augustive can do. Cincinnati is a running powerhouse this year, at least compared to CU. They're churning out 172 yards a game, nearly 100 yards per game Cincinnati advantage. But again, in my opinion, against much inferior defenses to CU, but we'll see. So we have a classic duel of contrasting styles. Colorado's high-flying passing offense against Cincinnati's ground and pound rushing attack, but with a significant, less explosive and less prolific passing attack for Cincinnati. Let's talk about some of the key players running these offenses. Shedeur Sanders for the Buffs. His completion rate, an impressive 72.2%. Brendan Sorsby has a completion rate, still solid 67.2. Shedeur, 2,268 passing yards. Sorsby, 1,928 passing yards. Shedeur, 19 passing touchdowns. Sorsby, 13 passing touchdowns. Shedeur's quarterback rating, a stellar 161.6. Despite facing relentless pressure, sacked 25 times this season, Sanders stands tall in the pocket, delivering darts downfield with surgical precision. Sorsby's quarterback rating is a 152.1. Sorsby brings a dual threat element, but recent games have shown cracks in the armor, particularly in the passing department. Let's not forget Cincinnati's bulldozer in the backfield, Corey Kiner. Cincinnati's rushing yards, 1,207 on the season, behind mainly Kiner with almost 600 yards, and Evan Pryor, an Ohio State transfer, with 307 yards. Most of the rest of the rushing yards are done by Sorsby, the quarterback. Since he's averaging 4.9 yards a carry with 12 rushing touchdowns. Corey Kiner is the engine of Cincinnati's running offense, a highly underrated future NFL draft pick running back, and the Buffs defense will need every ounce of discipline, focus, toughness, and grit to slow him down. They can if they tackle the way they did in our wins, but not if they tackle the way they did against KSU. My bet is that CU holds them below average rushing and passing for this game. Momentum can be a fickle friend, but it's crucial as we approach this high-stakes matchup to take a look at the last two games. For Colorado versus Kansas State, a heart-wrenching but eye-opening 31-28 loss to the 16th ranked team in the nation. Despite missing key players like Travis Hunter and battling a slew of injuries, they were a hair's breadth away from victory. CU defense in that game missed between 25 and 30 tackles. Travis Hunter alone was most likely the difference in the KSU game, but they still should have won without him. Hopefully that was a wake-up call / learning experience that we will not repeat. And then the last game against Arizona, a resounding 34-7 win. The defense tightened up and missing only a handful, like 5 or 6 tackles in that game, a huge contrast to the KSU game. They racked up 7 sacks, asserting dominance on almost every down, and they're now leading the Big 12 in sacks. Amazing. Thank you, Coach Sapp and Coach Livingston. Also, kudos to Keaton Wade, who has been one of the first portal transfers this year, but got injured breaking his foot in fall camp. He kept his head down, he worked his ass off, and he came in his first game with 2 sacks and 2 TFLs. Besides Travis, shout out to Nakai Hill-Green leading the defense in tackles, with Cam Silman-Craig right behind him. Colton Hood, the body-slamming interception master who's allergic to pick sixes, his words, not mine, balling out. Preston Hodge locking it down. Levante Bentley, Chidozie, Anquin Barnes, DJ McKinney, Shane Copes, Sam Okunlola. I mean, there's so many great players on CU's defense. They should shut down every team on the rest of the schedule, but will they? We will have to wait and see. All right, Cincinnati's last 2 games. Against UCF, they squeaked out a 19-13 win. Their offense sputtered a little bit and they couldn't capitalize on key opportunities. Only beating UCF by 6 is a game that I'm taking as a big indicator for this game Saturday night. Their last game against Arizona State, 24-14 victory that leaned heavily on their rushing attack. Sorsby threw for 206 yards, but failed to find the end zone through the air, and he threw 1 pick. Arizona State may or may not be good this year. They haven't really beaten anybody good, in my opinion, but Cincy is on a 2-game win streak with fire in their eyes to upset the Buffs here in Boulder Saturday night. So who's riding higher coming into this Saturday night? I still believe the scales tip decisively towards the Buffaloes, who seem to be ironing out their wrinkles at just the right time in the season. Let's address some injuries. Cincinnati, they have a couple of wide receivers that are injured. Tyron Smith and Aaron Turner are questionable. Losing them may handicap their passing game, but they still have several other legit wide receiver threats. Joe Royer, Tony Johnson, Jamoy Mays, and Xavier Henderson, all good wide receivers. Tight ends, Joey Belgian and Francis Sherman are questionable. Without them, Cincy's offensive playbook shrinks down, especially in the red zone situations. Okay, Colorado's injury concerns. We've got Travis Hunter, of course, CU's Heisman candidate, dynamic two-way star. He's questionable with a shoulder injury. Coach Prime said he should play. His presence or absence could be pivotal. Again, yesterday, Coach Prime said he's feeling a lot better than last weekend, so we'll see. Running back depth. Micah Welch is questionable. Hayden is still not 100%, which could further stress an already questionable, yet seemingly improving ground game for the Buffs. Let's go, Isaiah Augustave. This could be your true coming out party, man. Let's see it. Receiving core. We all know Omarion Miller is out for the season, but the Buffs have shown resilience with a deep room of wide receivers all rising to the occasion when their number is called, especially LeJontay Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr., Will Shepard, and Draylon Miller. Injuries are the unpredictable variable, a wild card that could potentially sway this game in either direction. Okay, and so some key matchups to watch in this game. Let's go zoom back onto the football field and spotlight the clashes that will define this game. Colorado's passing offense versus Cincinnati's secondary. Shedeur Sanders is orchestrating an aerial symphony, spreading the ball around with maestro-like finesse. He said he likes classical music, so there you go. Cincinnati's secondary has been leaky. They're allowing over 200 yards passing in recent outings against questionable opponents. And if their defensive backs can't keep up with the CU receiving core, then Shedeur and our wide receivers are going to have a field day. All right, Cincinnati's rushing attack versus Colorado's run defense. Corey Kiner is the tip of the spear for the Bearcats, a future NFL quality running back. Colorado's defense showed marked improvement against Arizona, but can they replicate that performance on Saturday night? The trenches are going to tremble as these forces collide on Folsom Field in Boulder. Coach Prime said today that they're taking steps to prepare differently for this night game versus how they prepared for the last one against KSU. So we'll see how that turns out. And then, of course, the last matchup, the turnover battle. Colorado has a +4 turnover margin for the season. Impressive. Cincinnati's pretty decent at a +1 margin for the season. Ball security and opportunistic defense could tip the scales. We all know in tight games, turnovers are often the not-so-silent assassins that claim dubs and hand out L's. And then we've got discipline and penalties. Cincinnati is only averaging 4.4 penalties per game. Colorado, a still concerning 7.3 penalties per game. And we're not going to get into the possibility of how the refs are influencing this number because that is a whole other video. But we need the Buffs to play clean football, especially no false starts on the O-line. We all know penalties are yardage, and in a game of inches, they can become miles. All right, so what are some other X factors and intangibles? Beyond stats and strategies, let's get into the heart and soul of what else could influence this game. We've got the ever-present home field advantage. Folsom Field, it's not just a stadium. It's a fortress for the Buffs. The altitude here in Boulder is over 5,000 feet. For the unacclimated, every breath feels a little bit thinner, every stride a little bit heavier. The Buffs are 3-1 at home, and CU fans are super loud. We will have to see how Cincinnati reacts to the altitude, the late night game time, the time zone difference, the crowd noise, and the spotlight. Hopefully the Buffs can overwhelm them early and demoralize them like Nebraska did to us in Lincoln. Coaching edge. Coach Prime has transformed the culture in Boulder. His players believe, and that belief can move mountains, or in this case, hopefully Bearcats. CU's biggest weakness this year, in my opinion, has been losing focus, maybe sometimes the way highly talented athletes can start to buy into their own hype and underestimate their opponents, or maybe it's just the reality of a team of new players still coming together in a highly competitive NIL/transfer portal transformed college football landscape where there's more parity. Either way, when this team under Deion Sanders in less than 2 years plays their best, they truly look like they could beat anyone in college football. All right, and we got the weather conditions, which are forecasted to be a crisp night with temperatures hovering around 45 degrees. The chill could stiffen muscles that aren't properly hydrated and test endurance, especially late into the game, possibly favoring whichever team is the most mentally and physically prepared. What kind of emotional momentum do we have? We've got Colorado hungry to prove that their early season successes were not a fluke, and Cincinnati is desperate for a marquee win to define their season. The psychological warfare will be as intense, almost as the physical. Okay, predictions and final thoughts. So after peeling back every layer, where does that leave us? Colorado's explosive passing game, combined with home field advantage and a rapidly improving defense, gives them the edge, in my opinion. If Travis Hunter plays, even better. But without him, the Buffs have shown that they can adapt and overcome. Cincinnati's reliance on the run is going to be their strength and potential Achilles heel. If they become too one-dimensional, Colorado's defense is going to adjust and shut them down. My prediction for this game, CU Buffs 42, Bearcats 21. I foresee the Buffs pulling away in the second half, their aerial attack proving just too much for the Bearcats to handle. But as always in college football, we have to expect the unexpected. What do you all think? My YouTube friends and family, Love and Liberty family. Will the Buffs' passing prowess prevail, or can the Bearcats' ground game grind out a victory for Cincinnati in Boulder? I want to hear from you guys. Drop your predictions down in the comments. Do you agree with this analysis, or am I underestimating the Bearcats' tenacity? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit the like button and please share it with fellow Buffs fans. I would love to get a press pass for CU because I'm just walking distance from the stadium, and I would ask the questions that the mainstream media never will. Maybe you guys now or in the future can help us get there, and together we can ask the questions true Buffs fans want to hear from the coaches and players. Before we wrap up, let's remember that football is obviously more than just a game of stats or numbers. It's a mixture of passion, perseverance, discipline, commitment, and moments that can define legacies. Saturday night's matchup is more than a contest. It's a collision of dreams and destinies. Thank you for joining me on this analysis journey. I'm Love and Liberty. This has been the Buffs Forecast. Until next time, keep your jerseys clean, the SCO high, and embrace the unpredictable drama and beauty of college football in the NIL and Coach Prime era. Stay safe, enjoy the game, and we will see you live on Friday night for the pep rally on Pearl Street, and live on Saturday night for the Buffs walk as the team walks into the stadium. Thank you guys very much for watching. See you soon. SCO Buffs!